The transition to their new life, Robert said calmly. David, your father and I have been watching your family. We've seen how you're raising our grandchildren, and we're concerned about the values you're teaching them. Sarah stood up. You're insane. Our children are loved and cared for. Robert pulled out a notebook. Emma has had 3 Bs this year. The twins were in a fight at school. Tommy has nightmares. These are signs of children under stress. The fact that they knew these details made my skin crawl. How do you know all this? We've been paying attention more than you realize, Linda said. We knew eventually we'd need to step in and provide these children with the home they deserve. You're talking about kidnapping, I said. We're talking about rescue, Robert corrected. Those children belong with family who will put them first. We are their family. We are their parents. Biology doesn't make you fit to raise children, Linda said. Dismissively, where are my children? Sarah demanded. They're somewhere safe, somewhere they'll be properly cared for. Don't worry, you'll be able to visit them once you've learned to be better parents. Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. Robert grabbed Sarah's wrist and twisted until she dropped the phone. You're not calling anyone. I lunged at my father, tackling him away from Sarah. Sarah, get your phone. Call 911. 911. What's your emergency? My children have been kidnapped by my in-laws. I need police at 42 Maple Street, immediately. Within minutes, sirens filled our neighborhood. Detective Maria Santos took our statements, while officers searched the house. In the living room, they found my parents' open suitcase with horrifying contents: chloroform, zip ties, duct tape, and sedatives, the detective announced, plus 3 sets of fake identification documents, birth certificates, social security cards, passports, all with your children's photos, but different names and birth dates that make them 2 years younger. I felt the floor dropping out. Why younger? Younger children are easier to control, easier to convince their memories are wrong. It's common in parental abduction cases. Detective Santos approached my parents. Where are the children? They're safe. They're where they belong, Linda said with that serene smile. With people who truly love them, Robert added. After demanding lawyers, Robert finally broke. They're with friends of ours, people who understand proper child rearing. It took 6 hours, but the police traced the friends. A couple in their 60s, living 40 miles away, who ran an unlicensed boarding school. When police arrived, they found Emma, Jake, and Tommy locked in a basement room, terrified but unharmed. The couple had been paid to educate the children about their new life, telling them their parents had given them away because they didn't love them anymore. Emma later told us she kept telling Tommy and Jake that it wasn't true, that we would come for them. My parents were charged with kidnapping, conspiracy, child endangerment, and possession of controlled substances. The friends faced similar charges. During the investigation, we learned this wasn't their first attempt. They'd been researching our family for months, studying our routines, our children's schedules. The trial was a nightmare. My parents' lawyer argued they were concerned grandparents trying to save neglected children. Robert testified that we were unfit parents, that the children deserved structure and discipline. Linda claimed they were acting out of love. The jury didn't buy it. Both received 15-year sentences. The aftermath was almost harder than the kidnapping itself. The kids needed months of therapy. Emma had nightmares about being taken again. Jake became clingy, afraid to let Sarah or me out of his sight. Tommy, the youngest, struggled to understand why his grandparents had hurt him. Some neighbors whispered that we must have done something wrong, that loving grandparents don't just kidnap children. Others rallied around us, bringing meals and offering support. Sarah and I went through our own healing process. We felt guilty for not trusting our instincts sooner, for wanting so badly to believe my parents had changed, that we ignored red flags. We attended family therapy, learned to communicate better about our fears and concerns. Our marriage actually grew stronger through the crisis. We realized how much we trusted each other, how we were willing to fight for our family. Sarah's quick thinking and insistence on coming home early probably saved our children from a much worse fate. 2 years later, we're different people. We're more protective, maybe overly. We verify everyone who comes into contact with our children. We've moved to a new neighborhood, changed our phone numbers, taken every precaution to ensure our family's safety. The kids are healing. Emma, now 12, is back to playing violin and getting A's. I need to tell you about something that happened 2 years ago. Something that still keeps me awake at night, wondering how close we came to losing everything. My name is David, and this is about the night my parents brought a gift for our kids, and my wife Sarah opened it to find something that changed our lives forever. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years. We had 3 beautiful children, Emma, our 10-year-old daughter, and our twin boys Jake and Tommy, who were 7. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. My parents, Robert and Linda, had always been distant grandparents at best. They lived 4 hours away, in Michigan, visiting maybe twice a year with criticism disguised as concern. The kids barely knew them, and honestly, I'd made peace with that. Then, in March of 2023, my mother called on a Tuesday evening. "David, honey, your father and I have been talking. We realize we haven't been the grandparents we should have been. We want to make that right." I was skeptical immediately. "What do you mean, Mom? Your anniversary is coming up. 12 years? We'd like to come down and watch the children so you and Sarah can have a proper celebration." I almost dropped the phone. My parents had never offered to babysit. Not once. Sarah and I agreed, but with conditions. They'd stay in a hotel, we'd only go out for a few hours, and if anything felt wrong, we'd come home immediately. 2 weeks later, my parents arrived on Friday afternoon. They looked older, but more intense. Somehow, their behavior was completely different. Linda asked the kids about school and remembered details. I was sure I'd never told her. Robert got on the floor to look at the boys' Lego creations and actually listened when Emma played violin. "You're very talented, Emma," he said. "Your fingering is excellent for someone who's only been playing for 6 months." As the afternoon wore on, I found myself relaxing. Maybe people really could change. The kids were enjoying the attention, and even Sarah seemed cautiously optimistic. That evening, after takeout pizza, Linda pulled out a wrapped package. "We brought something for the children, a little gift to make up for missed birthdays and holidays." The kids gathered around as Linda placed the package on the coffee table, about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in yellow paper. "Can we open it now?" Jake asked. "Of course, sweetie, but it's something special that you'll need to save for a special occasion. Think of it as a treasure pour." Inside was a plain brown cardboard box, sealed with tape. "What is it, Grandma?" Tommy asked. "It's a surprise for later. Why don't you put it somewhere safe for now?" Sarah reached for the box. "Let me help you kids find a good spot." "No." Linda's voice was sharp enough that everyone froze. She softened her tone. "I mean, why don't we let the children decide?" Something cold moved through my chest, but I pushed it away. Emma carefully picked up the box, but Robert suggested placing it by the front door, so you see it every day and remember that your grandparents love you. The next day was Saturday. My parents spent the morning with us, and it felt like the family moments I'd always wanted. Around noon, they went back to their hotel to rest. At 5 o'clock, they returned looking more formal, dressed in dark clothing that seemed oddly serious for babysitting. Linda was moving around the kitchen with purpose, opening cabinets as if familiarizing herself with our layout. "Sarah, dear, where do you keep the children's overnight bags?" Sarah paused. "Overnight bags. They won't need those tonight, just in case they spill something on their pajamas, or if we want to have a little adventure." The explanation made sense, but something about Linda's tone made my chest tighten. She began gathering items: pajamas, toothbrushes, changes of clothes for all 3 children. "Make sure you pack your favorite stuffed animals," she told them. "The ones you absolutely cannot sleep without." The emphasis on things they couldn't sleep without felt deliberate and strange. At 6:30, Sarah and I went upstairs to get ready. While putting on my tie, Sarah came out of the bathroom with a troubled expression. "David, when your parents were distant all these years, was there ever anything more concerning than indifference? Did they ever suggest the children would be better off somewhere else?" "No, nothing like that." "Why? There's something about tonight that doesn't feel right. Your mother is being possessive, and the questions she asked about our schedules, about who knows where we're going tonight. Why would that matter? Part of me wanted to agree, but another part couldn't bear ruining this opportunity. What if we compromise? We go to dinner, but come home early, really early. Sarah agreed reluctantly. But if anything feels wrong when we get home, we're having a serious conversation about your parents' role in our lives. As we were leaving, I turned back to see my parents with the children by the front door. Linda had her hands on Jake and Tommy's shoulders, holding them in place. Robert stood behind Emma, his hands on her shoulders too. It looked less like a fond farewell, and more like they were claiming possession. The restaurant was lovely, but both Sarah and I were distracted. An hour in, Linda texted, "Kids are doing great, playing games and having so much fun. Don't worry about rushing home." Sarah frowned. "David, your mother has never texted before. She always calls. So why is she texting now? Maybe she doesn't want us to hear what's happening in the background of a phone call." I realized. I think we should go home. Right now. We left money on the table and rushed out. The drive took 15 minutes that felt like an hour. Sarah tried calling twice, but no one answered. When we pulled into our driveway, the house looked normal. But as we walked to the front door, Sarah grabbed my arm. "David, listen." The house was completely silent. No sounds of children playing. No television. Nothing. "Where are the kids?" Sarah whispered. My hands were shaking as I put my key in the lock. We stepped into the foyer, and immediately I noticed that the brown box was gone from the entry table. "Mom? Dad?" I called out. "We're home." Linda appeared from the kitchen, smiling brightly. "You're back early. How was dinner? Where are the kids?" Sarah asked, immediately. "Oh, they're upstairs getting ready for bed. They had such a wonderful time playing with their surprise." "I want to see them," Sarah said, already heading for the stairs. Actually, Robert emerged from the living room, blocking Sarah's path. "They're already asleep. They had a big day, and they were exhausted. You know how children are when they get overstimulated." "It's only 8:30, I said. "They never go to sleep this early." "Well, we read them some stories and they just drifted off. They're sleeping so peacefully. It would be a shame to wake them." Sarah pushed past Robert and started up the stairs. "I'm checking on my children." "Sarah, please," Linda called after her. "You'll wake them up." But Sarah was already at the top of the stairs. I heard her open Emma's door, then Jake and Tommy's door. Then I heard her gasp. "David!" Her voice was sharp with panic. "David, get up here now." I took the stairs 2 at a time, with my parents close behind me. Sarah was standing in the hallway between the kids' rooms, her face white with shock. "They're not here," she whispered. "David, the kids are not in their beds." I looked into Emma's room. Her bed was neatly made, but clearly hadn't been slept in. The twins' room was the same. Beds made, no sign that anyone had been there recently. "Where are my children?" Sarah's voice was rising toward hysteria. Linda and Robert had followed us upstairs, and they both looked calm, almost eerily calm. "Now don't panic," Linda said soothingly. "The children are perfectly safe." "Where are they?" I demanded. "They're on a little adventure," Robert said. "They were so excited about their surprise that we decided to make it extra special." "What adventure? Where did you take them?" "David, sit down," Linda said. "Both of you. We need to talk." "I'm not sitting down anywhere until you tell me where my children are." Sarah was screaming now, and I didn't blame her. Robert's calm demeanor suddenly shifted. "You'll sit down and listen," he said in a voice I remembered from my childhood, cold and commanding, "or this conversation will go very differently." There was something in his tone that made my blood freeze. This wasn't my father being stern or paternal. This was something else entirely. Sarah and I sat on Emma's bed, holding hands so tightly our knuckles were white. My parents stood in the doorway, effectively blocking our exit. "Now," Linda said, her voice taking on a lecturing tone, "your father and I have been watching your family for a long time. We've seen how you're raising our grandchildren, and frankly, we're concerned. Concerned about what? I asked. About everything, Robert said. The neighborhood you live in, the schools they attend, the values you're teaching them. These children need structure, discipline, proper guidance. They need their parents, Sarah said through gritted teeth. Do they? Linda tilted her head. David, you work 60 hours a week. Sarah, you're so focused on your career that you barely have time for proper meal planning. These children are being raised by babysitters and daycare centers. That's not true, I protested. Isn't it? When was the last time you took Emma to a cultural event? When did you last help the boys with a science project? These children are being neglected, and we can't stand by and watch it happen anymore. Sarah stood up. You're insane. Our children are loved and cared for. They're happy, healthy, thriving kids. Are they? Robert pulled something from his pocket. A small notebook. Emma has had 3 B's on her report card this year. The twins were involved in a fight at school last month. Tommy has been having nightmares. These are signs of children under stress. Children who need more stability. The fact that they knew these details about our kids, things we had never told them, made my skin crawl. How do you know all this? We've been paying attention, Linda. We've been involved in their lives more than you realize. What does that mean? Robert and Linda exchanged a look. It means we've been preparing for this for a while, Linda said. We knew that eventually we'd need to step in and provide these children with the home they deserve. The implication of her words hit me like a physical blow. You're talking about kidnapping. We're talking about rescue, Robert corrected. Those children belong with family who will put them first, who will give them the attention and guidance they need. We are their family. Sarah was on her feet again, shaking with rage. We are their parents. You're their biological parents, Linda said dismissively. But biology doesn't make you fit to raise children. I felt like I was in a nightmare. Mom, Dad, please. Whatever you think you're doing, this isn't right. Bring the kids home. They are home, Robert said. They're with people who truly love them, people who will sacrifice anything for their well-being. Where are they? Sarah demanded. Linda smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen on a human face. They're somewhere safe, somewhere they'll be properly cared for. Don't worry, you'll be able to visit them. Visit them once you've learned to be better parents, once you've proven that you can put their needs first. We're not monsters, David. We want what's best for everyone. Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. Robert moved faster than I would have thought possible for a man his age. He grabbed Sarah's wrist and twisted until she dropped the phone. You're not calling anyone, he said. Not until we've finished our conversation. Let go of my wife. Sit down, David. Let go of her. Robert's grip on Sarah's wrist tightened, and she cried out in pain. Something inside me snapped. I lunged at my father, tackling him away from Sarah. We crashed into Emma's dresser, sending her jewelry box and picture frames crashing to the floor. Sarah, get your phone, I shouted as I grappled with Robert. Call 911. Linda tried to stop Sarah from reaching her phone, but Sarah shoved her aside and grabbed it from the floor. 911. What's your emergency? My children have been kidnapped by my in-laws, Sarah said, her voice shaking but clear. I need police at 42 Maple Street immediately. Robert stopped fighting me when he heard Sarah on the phone. With emergency service, he straightened his shirt and sat down heavily on Emma's bed. You're making a mistake, he said calmly. The only mistake I made was trusting you, I replied. Within minutes, we could hear sirens approaching. Linda and Robert sat quietly, holding hands, looking almost serene. It was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen. The police arrived with paramedics, and what I later learned was a specialized unit that dealt with child abduction cases. Our house was suddenly full of uniformed officers, detectives, and crime scene technicians. Detective Maria Santos was assigned to our case. She was a small, intense woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She separated Sarah and me from my parents and took our statements in the kitchen, while other officers searched the house. Tell me exactly what happened, Detective Santos said, her pen poised over a notepad. Sarah and I took turns explaining the entire evening. The strange behavior, the overnight bags, the secretive gift, the way my parents had positioned themselves between us and the children, their calm reaction to our accusations. The gift, Detective Santos said. You mentioned a brown box. Where is it now? It's gone, I said. It was on the entry table when we left for dinner, but it wasn't there when we came home. Can you describe it? About the size of a shoebox, wrapped in yellow paper. My mother said it was something special the kids needed to save for a special occasion. Detective Santos made notes. And your parents have never offered to babysit before? Never. In 12 years of marriage, this was the first time. What about their relationship with the children in general? Sarah answered this one. Distant. Critical. They visit maybe twice a year, and usually find fault with everything. Our parenting, our house, our lifestyle. The kids barely know them. So this sudden interest in spending time with them was unusual? Completely out of character, I said. Detective Santos closed her notepad. We're going to need to search your parents' hotel room and their vehicle. Do you have any idea where they might have taken the children? No, Sarah said, her voice breaking. They wouldn't tell us. Another detective appeared in the kitchen doorway. Detective Santos, we need you in the living room. We followed Detective Santos into the living room, where my parents were sitting on the couch, still holding hands. 2 officers stood nearby, and another detective was kneeling beside an open suitcase on the floor. What did you find? Detective Santos asked. The detective by the suitcase looked up grimly. Chloroform, zip ties, duct tape, and these. He held up 3 small vials of clear liquid. We'll need to test them, but they appear to be some kind of sedative. Sarah made a choking sound and grabbed my arm. The implications were horrifying. My parents had come to our house with supplies to drug and restrain our children. There's more, the detective continued. He pulled out a manila folder, 3 sets of fake identification documents, birth certificates, social security cards, even passports, all with your children's photos, but different names and birth dates. I felt like the floor was dropping out from under me. Different names. Emma is listed as Elizabeth, Jake as Michael, and Tommy as Matthew, all with birth dates that make them 2 years younger than they actually are. Why would they make them younger? Sarah asked. Detective Santos answered grimly. Younger children are easier to control, easier to convince that their memories are wrong. It's a common tactic in parental abduction cases. Parental abduction? I looked at my parents, who were still sitting calmly, as if we were discussing the weather. But they're not the parent. No, but they're family members. These types of cases often involve grandparents who believe they know what's best for the children. Detective Santos approached my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, where are the children? Linda looked up with that same serene smile. They're safe. They're where they belong. Where is that? With people who truly love them. Are you those people? We're part of it. Yes. Detective Santos sat down across from them. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to understand something. Right now, you and your husband are looking at charges of kidnapping, conspiracy, possession of controlled substances, and child endangerment. If those children are harmed in any way, you'll be looking at much more serious charges. Help us bring them home safely, and we can work together to resolve this. Robert spoke for the first time since the police arrived. Detective, you don't understand the situation. Those children were being neglected. We did what any loving grandparents would do, by drugging them and taking them from their home, by providing them with a better life. Where are they now? Robert and Linda exchanged a look. Linda nodded slightly. They're with friends of ours, Robert said. People who understand the importance of proper child rearing. What friends? Where? They're safe, Linda repeated. They're not scared or hurt. They're with people who will give them structure, discipline, love. Detective Santos leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, I need addresses and names. Now. I want to speak to a lawyer, Linda said calmly. That's your right. But while you're exercising your rights, 3 children are missing from their home, possibly drugged, definitely frightened. Every minute that passes makes this situation worse for everyone involved. Robert cleared his throat. The children weren't drugged. We would never hurt them. Then what were the sedatives for? Insurance, in case they became too upset during the transition. The transition to what?